Hello and welcome. I'm Lee Peterson. I'm the host of the podcast WDcast, which is called WDcast because it's brought to you by WD Partners, whose services range from strategy, design, insights, operations, architecture, and engineering, basically the whole gamut from start to finish. And so they can innovate and then they can scale and make a lot of them. And that's WDPartners.com. Thank you, WD Partners, for sponsoring the show, and thanks, Chris, in particular. And today we have with us remotely, still unfortunately, someone who is an expert in the world of digital and brand creative, Joey Zornes, who is partner and creative director at a company called Bonfire Red, which is a branding studio with a digital obsession. They are based in lovely Columbus, Ohio. Joey, thanks for being here, and how are you doing?
Feeling good. Thanks for having me, Lee. Very, very excited to be here. Talk a little bit about design and digital and all good things, creative. Quick fact, in 2011, one of the very first projects and clients that we ever worked with, Chris and myself, with Bonfire Red, was at WD Partners working with your guys' digital team. So you guys were actually one of our very first clients way back in 2011.
Good full disclosure there. So softball questions only, right? So speaking of that, could you just take us back a little bit and tell us about your background?
I came to Columbus, Ohio back in 98 and started my career here as a designer at Mills James Productions. And at the time, they had maybe about 25 associates in there in their web and interactive department. And I was totally it was my first job, but it was also just an incredible experience to be around, a video production firm, a live events firm. I learned so much about multimedia across the board, audio editing, and then how it sort of fit into digital. Digital was sort of a new up and coming type of thing back in 2011. The way we built websites, I mean, you could barely get a video to kind of, play through on a modem back then. So we had a lot of different things that we were fighting uphill against. But I spent about four years there, and then decided to kind of move on, went to Resource Interactive under Nancy Kramer and her team at Resource. Great, fantastic people. When I started there, it was probably around 52 people. 9 years later, when I left, it was 420 something. Wow. So incredible growth over time. Along the way, around 2006, 2007, I met Chris Reinhardt. And Chris, just an incredible designer. We were paired up on a few different projects at Resource, and it was just good chemistry, like we were both hard workers, both very design oriented, both just really into interaction design and how to sort of extend a brand online. Enjoyed it very, very much, and we're very hands-on. Probably around 2010 is when, I started to think about what was next for me. Found out that Chris was thinking a little bit about what was next for him. And together we just decided that Resource was growing. It was growing quickly across many different states. And where we saw our projection was to maybe be a little bit more focused on being hands-on and being in the creative versus sort of scaling up and, working through spreadsheets and managing people, all that. We love the management side of things, but we really wanted to focus back into
doing the work, the fun stuff, right?
Core craft. Yeah. What we love, what we started for. So that's when Bonfire Red became a thing. It was in a deep, long conversation in our basement, sitting there talking about kind of what's next and how we would do it and how we would actually present that to our spouses at the time. So yeah, it's been a fantastic ride. 2011 we started Bonfire, and a million stories after that.
That's so super cool. And talk a little bit about like the difference between a digital design and just a regular sort of 2D design. Like, say, what I'm more familiar with, obviously, is the design of, say, stores. So when you approach a design, is there a lot of similarities in your mind, or is it just a totally different thing?
I think digital is just as complex, I would say, as physical retail or any type of store environment. It really does depend on what type of experience we're dealing with, whether it's e-commerce, whether it's a brochure website, it's B2B, B2C, advertising focused, or, there's a specific CTA that you're trying to focus in on. That's the beauty of it in my mind, is that we have to sort of keep sharp in many different areas in regards to usability and understanding checkout, and all the different trends that are happening in checkout. The part that I love the most is definitely more on the side of digital storytelling, being able to go out and create custom content through photography, through illustration, through video and live music and whatnot, and bringing all that together and telling a story through a digital medium and breaking it up into both written content, video content, just all those little aspects of multimedia that you really don't get through a traditional print piece, a static piece. There are different layers of interaction and consumable information, that I think come together in a multimedia experience that, traditional media just can't really bring across.
So have you brought digital to physical space before?
At Mills James, we've done a few different kiosk type of projects in-house. Like I was saying before, it's more of a multimedia place. I think for us at Bonfire, we've really focused on mobile. We've really focused on desktop, traditional types of digital experiences in regards to taking a brand's message and being able to bring it to life.
Well, it's kind of interesting now at this point in time, especially after the great accelerator of over the course of almost the last year. Almost anyone, any large company or small company or local who has physical spaces is starting to realize the importance of the digital side. Actually, the dominance from this point on, I think, of the digital space, and especially mobile.
Kind of unfortunate, right? Because if anything, COVID has really forced us all to accept it, accept it or be left behind. And, case in point, one of the things, as a small business, we filed for a PPP loan from a bank, and usually process like that would happen, and it would be very, they would send you paperwork, or you have to go in and closing establishment or whatnot.
Government.
Oh yeah, I was stunned to have done all of that through Zoom, through phone, and
Really?
online. Absolutely. So that's when I knew, man, things are changing. They're changing quicker out here.
Well, it brings me to this point, and we've been talking about it, and a lot of people have been talking about it. And I heard a CEO recently saying the same thing. But one of the things she said was, and they had multiple stores, is we realized that everything now is digital first. And I started thinking, well, really for consumers, it's been like that for a long time. You get up in the morning, you check your text, and then when you think, I need some bananas, you're looking at like, well, who has bananas and where should I go for that, or whatever it might be. I need a red sweater. Shopping is the same as kind of everyday life, but it all starts either somewhere in your hand or on your laptop. Do you have any feelings about that? I mean, does everything sort of swing your way when this digital first became dominant?
I think that's been the premise of Bonfire Red since we started it. Probably the most important insight, in 2010, 2011, after we had been working with Resource for so long and being immersed in digital for that long, was that we saw the way people were building, they're a branding firm and this is their process and whatnot. Digital was one of the last things that people were talking about. We just decided to turn that around and say, okay, we're going to go in. We think the first date is always going to be through digital, through mobile, more than likely than anything. So we feel like your brand needs to be relevant in the digital space. But you'd be surprised in 2011 and 2010, when we started this, how many people were still just, more traditional in their approach.
Yeah, I can testify to that, being in the business of physical stores for a long time. I mean, up until maybe the last 3 or 4 years, that was almost an afterthought. Like, how do we bring digital into a store? Is it a kiosk? Is it a directional screen? Could we send them coupons or something like that on their cell phone when they walked in the door? Or just really sort of lame things versus digital first, which is an approach that you start to think that the customer is there digitally first, and then what happens after that?
Yeah, I think it begins with the first impression being online, and then what I've always tried to do is be consistent across the rest of the channels, right?
Yeah.
Being more consistent on building the message, winning their trust, and obviously, leading to wherever it needs to go after that. But it really does, it always has really started in the digital realm. And I think whatever the customer journey is.
A little bit off your brand necessarily, but it may be just an opinion. What do you think about stores, physical stores now, since we're sort of dancing around that topic anyway? Like, what's your take on what's happened to stores? I mean, we kind of know like some, sort of a majority of stores and restaurants were closed for 3 or 4 months, but now they're open. They have to socially distance. They're enabled. But aside from that, what do you think about stores? Like, is there a way forward for them as a layman, as a user of stores? Like, what do you think about stores? Where's that going?
The stores I really enjoy going to are the ones that I think have a little bit more experience in customer service type of interaction. There's a vibe. I look at Filson and I look at a lot of the things that are in the Filson store. And when I go in there, it's, crack open a beer. It's, walk around, show me some of these pieces, but also tell me some of the history behind it. I love that type of interaction in a lot of outdoorsy type of stores. So, there's a place for that. There's always going to be a place for that, I think. But I do really like buying stuff online, having it show up in a day and a half, 2 days or whatnot. There is something to that is
I call it the single malt Scotch theory, right? Where once you try single malt Scotch, you think, what was all that crap I drank in my 20s and I'm never drinking it again? And it's a little like that with e-com and everything that comes with it, especially now. I mean, I can look at a video, I can get something from Depop where a person would actually sell it to me and try it on, and I would take a look at it and ship it to me. And if I didn't like it, I'd ship it back. I mean, some of those things are kind of phenomenal now compared to that same scenario in a store.
I've been living it here as of recent. I purchased something for my back patio last year, and it was a circular table with a bunch of chairs or whatnot. And when I got it, I wasn't impressed. I mean, I liked it, but I didn't love it. Right. So I was like, I got to send this back now. It's a big item. And this is through Wayfair. And Wayfair is like, no. How much will you pay for it so we don't have to ship it back? I was like, are you kidding me? So I got 70% off of this huge set because they didn't want to ship it back. I just was like completely blown away by that, but it also started a new strategy for me on online buying. So.
Well, Amazon started that actually. And I don't know, it was last year sometime. We bought something, so we're going to send it back. We asked for the code. They just said, keep it. I'm sure they have the algorithm that says by the time we ship this 3 times, once to you, once back, once out again, and God only knows it's why we have to wrap it up again to do all this stuff. It just isn't worth it. So go ahead and keep it. And there's probably some sort of tax write-off. But I think like all in all, like you're saying, like the store experience has to be more than it's all those things. Like I was was in a Yeti store in Austin, and they had a room for a band. They had a bar in the front. They had a screen where you selected one of the coolers and it told you all about it. That you could do a gene wall like that or something. But it was just a really interesting place to go, and like many different levels, most of which, like the live band in the bar, for one thing, could not be achieved online at all. It was a different thing. They're looking like they were really, set up to sell tons of product off the shelves. They were creating a brand experience. And it feels to me like that's kind of the way forward.
That to me, like when you can see and picture yourself in a brand and living that brand, I mean, that's obviously where you become more of a loyalist. And we've seen stores kind of merging that way and kind of like pointing that way for a while now. But yeah, it's been heightened even more so with the pandemic. So
could you talk about, now you guys are a small company, right?
16 employees.
What's it like competing against the big guys?
Wow, I don't know if we really go up against them too often, but here's what I'll say. I think the way that we've always looked at it is that we're a small team. We're more of like a Navy SEAL team versus sending in like 2 platoons from the larger firms or whatnot. We tend to kind of be able to get in, learn our subject matter very quickly, produce at the same level as a lot of those higher, those bigger firms, and then get out and still stay extremely profitable with half the time and half the budget. I think there's something to that. I think that there is, there's a lot of experience at the top of our leadership. Chris Reinhardt and myself being, we're both the creative directors on pretty much almost every project. We just brought someone into our design director leadership, third creative lead. And then on top of that, we have our managing director, Amy Ham, who is just an incredible operator of the business. I mean, she's a strategist, sales, she gets into project management across the board, but she's just an incredibly intuitive person who helps us sort of build our strategic side of the business. Pretty much the 4 of us coming together, we pack a good punch, I think. We don't tend to really actually go up against any of those large firms also, by the way. Most of how we engage is through word of mouth. We don't really find ourselves in a pitch scenario as much as most people might think. Usually it's because someone saw our work on awards, some type of AIGA or website out there that's getting some type of accolades, or it's somebody that used to work at a client that has then moved on to another client, and they just really like the experience, so they brought us with them. That's been sort of our bread and butter right there, is to really try to build up the people that are working across from us all the time, and if we can do that and be successful at that, then everybody wins.
But I want you to think about it, because someday you're gonna. With the way you guys are going, someday you're gonna face somebody like Razorfish, and then you'll be like,
well, I have a feeling that we've indirectly
what's this David and Goliath thing?
Yeah, I feel like we have indirectly in the past, given that we've been working with NetJets, we've been working with Aston Martin, Moen, Scott's Company, a lot of large brands across the board, and Tampa Bay Buccaneers of all places. Wow. So I mean, I don't know how you get into those places. I know that we've gotten in there through word of mouth and just doing our thing. Fairly large company kind of looking in on that.
You'll find out, right? Okay, so I'm going to switch topics a little bit back to retail, and we were talking about this a little bit before, but I was really struck by a comment that was made to me by the CEO of Alibaba, who said that during the pandemic and even afterwards, in 2020, they did over $44 billion with live streaming. And live streaming is basically a pure play digital. It's just that, there's 2 live actors with the ones that I've seen. Now, there's usually 1 person or 2 people, sometimes makeup, sometimes shoes, sometimes food. I mean, it could be anything, and they talk about it. They give examples of it. They almost tell jokes about it. They make mistakes about it. And you have the ability on your mobile or on your laptop to press a button and to have the item shipped up and sent to your house or added to your basket. What do you think about live streaming? What's your thoughts on that?
Sounds like a very casual QVC, where essentially you're
intimate.
Yeah. It's more of a personal sort of casual, hey, I'm talking about this. I like your shirt. Where'd you get your shirt? I like that.
Like Depop's like that.
I mean, what I like, given that I'm the, part owner of a digital first company, you'd be surprised at how analog I can be in regards to the rest of my life, the traditional things of how I interact and experience the world. But I mean, I think it's really interesting. I love innovation. I love being a part of learning all those things. I think, again, like, I just don't know if putting commerce into a conversation feels big brotherish to me, feels awkward that, any type of privacy that I have, well, it's actually it's got like a tag to it. I don't know.
It could be generational too. Like when my daughters call me, which is rare, but what they'll do is FaceTime call. It's not just, a telephone call. I'm pretty sure they don't know what that is.
Yeah.
And they were the ones that turned me on the Depop too, where my one daughter got a package at the door and I'm like, what's that? She goes, oh, it's this great. Look at this top. I got it for $9. I'm like, where'd you get it from? She goes, oh, Jenny in New Jersey. I'm like, what? The whole process is basically live streaming one-on-one. And so that takes it to like a different level altogether. But the $44 billion thing was something that really struck me.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just think culturally, I haven't heard of anything like that happening in the United States. But
yeah.
I've been to Shanghai, I've been to China, and I know that area is it's just culturally different. The way that they're engaged in technology is still vastly culturally different. They still can't get on Google, but
or Facebook, but which seems to be popular now. But I think the other thing is they grew up on mobile.
Yeah,
they
do everything.
Modems and PCs and all this other stuff and work PCs. Everything is on mobile.
Yeah, I remember we went to a dumpling shop right on the outskirts of Shanghai, in like a water town or whatnot. And I was with Chris Reinhardt, my business partner, and one of the chefs who was cooking these dumplings, dim sum, whatever you call it here in the States, but out there they call it dumplings. She was just like, had an interest in my business partner. We had the WeChat app, and through WeChat, we just kind of hold our phone up, you scan it, you make a connection just like that, just by holding the phones together. It was amazing because now we were like translating and talking, like everything was done through WeChat. Yeah. And what came next was probably, 2 months of unsolicited communications from somebody you can't understand, but it was.
So speaking of devil, what's especially with everything that's happened lately, there's a lot of questions about it, but what's your take on social platforms? Good or evil? Because there doesn't seem to be a middle ground.
I think there are good people and there are evil people, and I think social is nothing other than a microphone. So if you're an asshole, then you are going to be spreading hate. If you're a good person, you're more likely going to be spreading good. I don't think that Twitter and Facebook and all of them should be penalized or anything like that. I don't think it's a social network issue. I think it's a whether or not you're an asshole or not issue.
That is so spot on. I'm going to definitely write that down as soon as we get done. Okay. Well, thanks for the insights. Now I really am going to throw you a couple of softballs. So we both, as it turns out, we did a little digging, and you have a daughter named Ava, and so do I, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that your youngest daughter?
She's my oldest, the first one. Yeah.
Yeah. So how's it going personally? Like, what do you guys do for fun?
Well, it's been a hell of a go, but I'd say, everybody's focused on the future. I think we've been trying. We're very close. I think, thank God for Schitt's Creek. We have all really sort of come together in regards to watching that series. And it's interesting because Schitt's Creek is based off the premise of these parents that are out doing their thing. The kids don't know each other, and then something horrible had to happen to bring them together to somehow come together. I would like to say that we weren't distant from our kids before COVID, but we certainly are very much more in tune with everything going on in our kids' lives right now. In fact, they're both upstairs and in their rooms doing the whole digital schooling thing right now. But we just try to keep it positive. Both of them are getting into volleyball club volleyball right now, so that's kind of cool. Just something to kind of look forward to. I can't wait till the summer comes so that we can get some better weather.
You're not traveling or anything, are you? Did you start that up again at all?
No, we haven't. Last time I traveled was in November. I got an Airbnb down in North Carolina, and we drove as a family all the way down there and stayed sort of in a really secluded little area.
You go into rest stops with a hazmat suit on?
No restaurants. I was the only one that did go in and out. So yeah, we do our best to keep everything pretty locked in. So
that's good. And you guys are all healthy and happy, huh?
Yeah, thank God for that.
Yeah. So one last question, and this came from a friend. Tell us what happened at the Panama Canal.
That's my hometown.
What?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Panama, in Central America. Grew up there. I have one brother. My father was actually born in Panama. My mother was adopted by a military family who then moved to Panama. So that's where my mother and my father met each other in high school. And
wow.
Over the years, my dad was working for the Panama Canal. He was chief of safety operations. My mother was a budget analyst for the Department of Defense. I just had the great fortune to grow up in a utopia, in the middle of Central America, right on the equator, and I loved it. It was fantastic.
Did any of the Noriega experience?
Oh yeah. So when I say utopia, there's probably about a 4-year chunk that we take out of that definition. But we were there in '89 when the invasion happened, and it was real.
Scary.
Oh yeah, it was definitely something I'll never forget.
Está bien. Okay. Well, thank you, Joey, and you've been very gracious and insightful. Much appreciated. Thanks for making WDcast better. Good luck, and here's to a great 21 to all of us.
Thank you, Lee. I really appreciate it, and thanks for having me on.
Sure, it's been great. Thanks for making us better. Like I said, I mean that. And people, be sure and listen to WDcast as we prod more value information out of extremely enjoyable guests like Joey. Also, be sure and subscribe to this podcast, which is at wdpartners.com. You hit the hamburger, you go to the bottom of the page, there's a little icon right there. You click on the icon and you'll see exactly how to do that. We're talking to entrepreneurs like Joey, CEOs, artists, retailers, all good stuff, all good learning. So thanks for listening. Stay safe. And remember, the first rule of leadership is it's always your fault. Okay, thank you. Take care.